Hello YouTube. Today I want to show you a couple guns in my collection that are the Walther P1. In order to cover this handgun, I gotta go back a ways and we need to learn about the Walther P38 first. The P38 was invented by Carl Walther and was intended to replace the Luger. The Luger was a fine handgun, but it was extremely costly and time-consuming to produce due to its intricate design and need for very fine machine work. The P38 design was accepted by the Wehrmacht in 1938 and went into production in 1939. The P38 was the first lock-breeched handgun to use a single-action, double-action type trigger with a decocker. Which, I'm sure you guys know how this works, but you can cock the hammer, fire in single action, or you can decock it and fire in double action. So this was a pretty new design at the time. It was very handy for soldiers because they could carry it loaded with a round in the chamber, the hammer down, and it was ready to draw and fire. They didn't have to worry about operating a safety or chambering around, but the trigger was heavy enough in double action to where they're not going to accidentally fire the gun. And of course, after the first shot, the hammer is cocked automatically by the slide and remains cocked, so then you're in single action for the remainder of the magazine. I'm sure most of you know how that works, but it's an important part of this design, and I wanted to go over that a little bit. And I'll show you in detail. We'll take these down and show you all how they work. This was actually used in the earlier Walther PPK handgun. It had a decocker also with a double action, single action trigger, but it was not a locked breech design. The barrel was fixed, so it did not move at all. It was a blowback only because it was a 32 ACP or a 380, which is less powerful than the 9mm. The 9mm needs the lock breech type design. So I'm going to show you takedown here, and it's going to be a little hard for me to do from behind the camera here. I'll move this to the side. Now I've already made sure this gun is unloaded. There's no magazine in it. So if you have the hammer cocked, you need to decock it, return the decocker to the top, push the barrel back as far as it will go, and then operate this takedown lever forward. Then you can take the slide straight off. So this design uses a wedge-shaped falling block. You can see that right here. Both the barrel and the slide recoil together for a short distance, but then this little plunger here hits the front of the feed ramp in the frame, which pushes down that wedge, and that unlocks the slide in the barrel, so the slide can travel all the way to the back, eject the cartridge, pick up a new round, come forward, and then it is locked back in place. Sorry, that can kind of come loose if you pull on it, but when that is up, these two are locked completely in place. This design is said to be a little more accurate than like a Browning tilting barrel design, since the barrel is always straight in line. It never tilts like, say, like a 1911. The barrel tilts to unlock. I don't know if that's really true. A handgun, it's going to be hard to see accuracy differences, especially in a combat situation. You're shooting man-sized targets, usually pretty close distances. These aren't a primary weapon, they're usually a backup, so I don't think accuracy is a huge issue, but some people do say this design is supposedly more accurate. The P38 was produced until the fall of Nazi Germany in 1945. West Germany then resumed production in 1957, and the P38 was their standard sidearm until 1963, when the P1 was adopted. And this is a P1 here, and I've been speaking about the P38, but they're nearly identical, so I do not have a P38. They are quite a bit more expensive, more collectible. So as I said, the P1 is basically identical to the P38 besides markings and a few small changes. The largest change is that the frame on a P1 is an aluminum alloy that is anodized. And this model has seen plenty of use. You can see all the wear to the inside of the frame and the finish. This one was definitely carried and used quite a bit. My other one is either refurbished or was hardly used, and I don't believe it was refurbished because usually it'll have a marking there. See this W193 means that this was refurbished in 1993. So this may be an unissued one or one that they refinished and didn't mark. I'm really not sure. But you can see this one has a Parkerized slide, whereas this one is blued with plenty of wear. The P1 also has improved sights over the P38. There are different types of sights on the P1. As you can see on the left, there is a white dot on the rear and the front. On this other model, there is only a white dot on the rear, and you have a thin front sight instead of the white dot. The aluminum frame did show some weakness, and one of the areas of wear was here. And so they started putting this hex bolt in. This is a steel pin that goes through and allows it to take some of the beating on that usually gets taken up by the aluminum frame. My other one does not have it. It would be right there. You can see the difference. These were given a fatter slide later on because some of the slides were cracking, and these are both the fat slide models. They have a thicker slide. I can't show you what one of the thin ones look like, but one way you can tell is that the serrations will stop at about here, and they don't go forward like they do on these fat slide models. And you'll see that on a P38, they stop about right there. The P1 was the sidearm of West Germany until German reunification, when it began to be phased out by the P8 pistol, which finally replaced the P1 completely in 2004. These were granted curio and relic status and came into the USA as surplus years ago. I hardly see them these days. I got mine in around 2013, as late as 2014. I have seen some small batches come in. I think AIM Surplus had them, but for the most part, you're going to have to go to the secondary market, a gun show, gun broker, a forum, something like that, to find these. So they have become more rare, and expect to pay more as time goes on, just like anything else. The word I got is that there was still some overseas, but they are destroying all surplus guns over there due to the UN arms treaty, which is quite frustrating because they're not only destroying fairly modern guns like this, but even old bolt action rifles that should be saved as collectibles and not destroyed. These are all quite well made. They're fun to shoot. I have seen reports of people saying to avoid higher pressure ammo in these because even with the reinforcements, they still can beat up the frame, as you can see on this one. I mean, you can see the wear here. The aluminum, it's really light and it deforms pretty easily. So if I had one of these, I would keep it sensible. You may need 124 grain to get them to run right, but stay away from plus P or NATO stuff unless yours just will not run with the lower pressure stuff. These are a little bit ammo sensitive. I wouldn't expect to be able to run hollow points through these. You may be able to find some that will run. When reloading for them, they can be kind of a pain because they're real sensitive to overall length and the bullet design. But these are a great alternative to P38s. It'll allow you to get basically the same gun for a good deal less. The best deals out there in actual World War II P38s are going to be Russian refurb models or Russian captures, and they will be that typical dip blue that you see with like Mosins and Russian capture K98s. Just kind of a thick, ugly blue. I'm going to show you further takedown on this to separate the barrel. Again, you push in on this little plunger. You can take the barrel completely apart and check out this tilting wedge design here. This is nearly the same as the Beretta 92 design. As you can see, the slide is slightly similar too, with this open top. So the Beretta 92 does borrow highly from this gun. To put it back together, you will see that the ejector hits back here, so you're going to have to push that down. Make sure this wedge is up in, and you will be able to go back with it. If I can get it. Okay. Now you're going to take it to the rear. Hit the slide stop to hold it back. Push your takedown lever back up, and now you're good to go. So this one is very nice. Like I said, I do not know if it's been refinished, but it does not have a rework date on it. There's some scratches on the parkerizing, probably just from storage and transport. But this one is very nice. I keep this one greased up and I don't shoot it. I've never shot this one. You can see there's absolutely no wear on the feed ramp down there. And that is an aluminum feed ramp, so it doesn't take many shots to wear that. So this is either a very fresh refurb or just an unissued model. I wouldn't think it would be unissued since it's a 1980 model. But I don't know. This one is a 1982, 1282. So it's got me on that one. I'm going to have to do some more research. They have a relatively small import mark. I wish it wasn't on the slide like that. I would prefer it down here or even on there if they could get it. These came from Southern Ohio Gun when I bought them. I believe they were around $375, and I did pay for hand select on this one. I asked for the cross bolt because I knew I wanted one to shoot and one to just kind of be a safe queen. So on this one I did not pay hand select or make that request, and it's a nicer gun, but I wouldn't want to shoot it a lot without that cross pin. They came with a nice holster. This holster is actually pretty old, has a date of 1959, and it is labeled as a Pistola 38. So this was a P38 holster. And they also came with this leather magazine pouch, which you can see has been used quite a bit. This doesn't have a date on it. And then the handgun also came with an older P38 magazine. The newer ones are labeled P1. These are 8-round magazines, just like the Luger was. And these have a heel magazine catch, which is kind of unfortunate. I'm not a big fan of those, but it's just a range gun, so no big deal. Has a lanyard loop. The grips are 2-piece. One thing I did not cover, I'm going to take this down real quick. Sorry, I'm going to do this off camera. Some of these have a sleeved 2-piece barrel. Can you see that seam right there? That's actually a sleeve on the inside that has the rifling. I found an article online that has that goes over all the changes. These were changed several times throughout their production. All kinds of tiny little differences. The hammer was beefed up. The takedown lever was changed. I already covered the cross pin. The slides were changed. Some of them do not have a spring-loaded ejector like that. But I really didn't want to get too deep into that in this video. I might link that article in the description if you wanted to really get into that. I have heard sometimes of this top plate popping off while shooting. I think that's a problem that the P38s also had. Not a common problem, but something that does happen now and then. And I have not taken one of these down all the way. I have heard it's kind of complicated underneath there. They do have a loaded chamber indicator. See that little pin right there? When the cartridge is chambered, it pushes back on that. So it's a tactile deal where you could reach down and feel it and tell whether you have a round chambered or not. They do have a firing pin safety. So that's about it on these. Really cool guns, a unique design, something that was historically significant and is used in guns even to this day. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll be back soon with some more Cold War guns that I have, and I will talk to you later.